We are live! Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Show Must Go On line. Today's guests are from the wonderful BN Arts Hero. We've got Jenny Grace Makholm and Carson Elrod. How are y'all doing today?
Excellent. Thank you for having us.
Doing great.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, this is fabulous. I love when we have two guests who are both amazing in your own right and with this amazing campaign and looking out for fellow artists. So we're going to talk all about both. I was just saying off camera that it's really important when you're talking about why the arts are important to also hear about your journeys individually and as a collective. So I like to start with your origin stories. Jenny, let's start with you. What got you into theater and the arts in general?
I started very young, very young. My mother and father lived in this little hippie-ish commune called Koinonia, right outside of Baltimore, and it was sort of like where all these artists lived, and they dangled like crystals over my mom's belly when she was still pregnant with me, and when I was born, one of the artists left on my mom's doorstep a drawing, a watercolor that said, "Unto you a songbird is born." And from then on, like my mom was like teaching me, like I learned how to sing pretty early on. I was crawling underneath the church pews while my mom was in choir practice. And I started singing in choirs when in grade school, the Maryland youth choir, and then went to performing arts middle school, so that was sort of, I was brought in real young, and it just clicked for me right away. That was my life.
Wow, that I've never heard that before with the crystals and we're getting really unique here. Carson, how about you?
Well, it's similar. Like my best friend growing up, his dad ran the theater department at Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas. So early on in my life, I played in a theater. I ran around backstage and in the wings and in the catwalks, and I would sit in the booth and watch shows while he directed or stage managed or whatever. So even at a very, very young age, I was finding home within theater. And then my mom had the great good fortune, because she's a professor, to do these like visiting professorships in Europe in the summers, and she would take my sister and myself. So I remember in the summer of like 1985, we were in London, and I saw Cats and Starlight Express and The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, age 13 and a quarter, and Little Shop of Horrors, and just all these plays. So early on, there was like a healthy dose of theater, Broadway, West End, that kind of stuff. And then I went to the University of Kansas, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I kind of went in with this, neo-craft skilled mentality that because my parents both had JDs and were in law, I thought, oh, okay, I'll probably be on some sort of a pre-law track. And then in the middle of my first year of college, that same friend who I referenced earlier, Ryan, was like, you know what? I'm done with Kansas. I'm done with college. I'm moving to New York. I'm out of here. So he moved away. And all of a sudden I had all this time in my life that I used to spend hanging out with him. And so I tried to fill those hours. I DJ'd for the college radio station. I wrote a column for the college newspaper. And then I auditioned for an improv comedy group and for a school play. And those auditions both led to me being cast. And so the school play was Stephen Sondheim's Assassins. And I went through my first true rehearsal process. At the same time, I was like rehearsing with my, improv sketch comedy group. And I was just loving it. And then the first performance for Assassins, I was playing Giuseppe Zangara, and I was like sitting in an electric chair, and it was coming up to my song, and like the hot white spotlight hit me, and I was like looking out at the Crafton Pryor Theater KU, which is like 1,400 seats. It's bigger than a lot of Broadway theaters. And I was like sitting there in the middle of the stage with this hot white spotlight on me, like looking out into the dark, and I just felt at home. I just had like a feeling of, I guess, that being called. And on the other side of that, I spent all my summers training. Like I went to Shakespeare and Company. I did an NYU summer training thing. I did KU summer Shakespeare stuff. And then I worked my patootie off to get into NYU's Tisch School of the Arts graduate acting program, which I was fortunate enough to get into. And then I got my MFA from NYU grad acting, and I have been a professional actor primarily out of New York ever since.
Wow. This is just, it's so interesting to hear origin stories because it also goes to show how ingrained it is, how being an actor or being in the arts in general is just a part of your soul. It's a part of who you are. It's like, it's what feeds you. I was reading so much about the Be an Arts Hero. I was reading the website and how the arts are described. And I just want to talk a little bit about, it is weird. There's something about how like the arts has a trouble telling their own story. I think that was something I read, which is ironic. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Just a bit. Yes, I really do think.
It's like rain. So
we'll go there with you.
Portion, right? This is when we start. Okay, I brought my microphone and
yeah. We got to get a little jagged little pill in here.
Yeah.
We got to get that Broadway action.
Bring it.
Come on.
Yeah.
Bring it on. So
listen, bwaySHO has already won me over.
Inspired on
the park, that production, really, really tremendous performers.
So stunning. So before we continue just singing a whole Broadway medley here, why don't we talk about what Arts Hero is? Either of you can take it away.
Well, Be an Arts Hero fundamentally is it's an intersectional grassroots organization that is fighting and uniting for proportionate relief for the arts and culture sector. But added to that we began simply seeking for relief. But as we have continued on this journey, it's now turned into a fight for representation and investment as well.
So, yeah, you mentioned how everything has kind of changed. Life has changed so much since March, but even within the pandemic, just the idea of how long is this going to be and unemployment and trying to get unemployment. But then it's like, all right, that's just a start. Even just with everything we've been reading about going from the $600 to $1,200 to possibly $2,000 in a stimulus check. And it's like, that's still not enough. And this whole journey feels like we're getting closer, but closer and as we're still a marathon away.
Yeah, I think what's hard is people aren't quite understanding the size and scope of the devastation within the creative economy. Like right now, 63% of arts workers self-identify as being completely unemployed. I'm one of them. I lost 3 jobs on March 11th. And, Dr. Fauci said that theater conservatively could come back maybe September-ish. So that's another 9 months from now. And so if we think about 63% or 2.7 million arts workers that identify as being unemployed, and that's now, and we're kind of at the halfway mark. And so it's really important that we think about what is needed for the creative economy, arts workers and their employers, because over the course of the summer, you had like over 10% of arts administrations, organizations, institutions, industries saying they were not confident they were going to survive. The National Independent Venue Association, which was the group behind Save Our Stages, talked about independent venues, and they said 90% of independent venues are going to close forever without dedicated relief. And what that would do to the economy writ large would be horrible, because arts and culture institutions anchor communities and are part of these really exciting socioeconomic ecosystems in every state in the union. So making sure that there is appropriate relief for this sector that brings in $877 billion to the United States economy. That's bigger than transportation. That's bigger than agriculture. That's bigger than construction. We are big business, and we are local business. We're all over the country, and it is imperative that we be stabilized before it's too late.
Wow. I don't think people realize just how big, economically speaking, the arts are. That it's not just that it feeds the soul, but it's feeding the economy.
Yeah, it's what we call a cornerstone sector, right? Because it doesn't just feed, it doesn't just provide an economic boon to like it doesn't just contribute to itself. It also other industries, I'm going to take that one back. Other industries implicitly rely on our sector. So we're talking about hospitality, we're talking about transportation, we're talking about food and beverage, bars, restaurants, whatnot. So an average arts night out, it involves hiring a babysitter. It requires gas for your car or a taxi ride or a subway ride. It's dinner beforehand, concessions during, and drinks afterwards, and then transportation home. And that's only if it's an arts event in your area. Now, 68% of tourism is cultural.
Wow.
68%. And not only that, but cultural tourists tend to spend almost 2 times more than other tourists. So when we say the words, there is no American economic recovery without a robust arts and culture recovery, that's what we mean. When we think about all of the interdependent sectors that rely on the arts and culture sector to exist, and not just exist, but thrive, it truly, our fates are tied together.
Well, and I want to, jumping off of what you said, about not a whole lot of people know this, we didn't know this when we started. When we started, we just knew that the federal pandemic unemployment compensation was running out. And for so many people, like even while the CARES Act funding was there, we were watching arts institutions fold and close. The Upright Citizens Brigade Theater closed within a month of the pandemic. And then Improv Olympic in Chicago and the Cirque du Soleil went bankrupt. I had people being dropped by their agencies because their agency was like, well, we don't have any artist commissions, so we don't have any money, so we're closing and we're letting all of our clients go. So even during the CARES Act, the fabric of the reality of our lives was starting to kind of unravel, and it was getting very scary. So as we started, all we knew is that the arts and culture sector, got $75 million of dedicated relief in the CARES Act. And while, that FPUC was a really important and amazing resource for unemployed arts workers and all the other people in the country unemployed for no reason other than COVID-19 destroyed their jobs, we went into it just going like, okay, we don't really know anything about the arts and culture economy. We just know it needs help. So then when we started to dig into the facts and the figures, and we've all become data nerds, when we went to the National Assembly of States Arts Agencies, when we got into the BEA numbers, when we got into the arts.gov numbers, when the Brookings Institution study came out and we started to like metabolize these numbers, we were like, wait a minute, we're $265 billion more to GDP in value added than than transportation. That's incredible. There's a Secretary of Transportation. There's no Secretary of Arts and Culture, and we're $265 billion more in value added to the economy every year. So this arts hero journey for us has been one of self-discovery, of our own dignity, of our own self-worth. And so much of what we're trying to do is we're trying to spread the word so that all 5.1 million arts workers in this country understand that they are part of a big, important, crucial sector of our economy that provides 4.5% of our total GDP. It's big, and we didn't know either.
Yeah, and the thing about being an arts hero is that we didn't exist, right? We're new. And we're a testament to the fact that anyone can do this work, right? We're not policy whizzes. We're not, we're not professional lobbyists like we didn't start out this journey thinking, I know we're going to be professionals in arts advocacy. We just were motivated because we were the people we were fighting for. And likewise, we've decided that the best, it's almost like, I don't know if there are any like Buffy fans, but at the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, oh, I'm going to spoil alert it, but that show has been off for a really long time. So at the end of Buffy, everyone gets the power to be a slayer. I know I spoiled it for someone. That's what we're trying to do. It isn't, we're not trying to bogart the power or the advocacy. What we want to do is empower each and every arts worker to become an advocate themselves. We want to educate and activate and empower every single arts worker to feel free to lobby on their own behalf. And our job is just to give them the tools to do that.
Well, and, people, like, as we start this journey, for 10 airlines to be able to secure $50 billion in relief, well, that's an easy contract to understand, right? So, the sector, the lobbyists, they call the policymakers, they say these 10 airlines represent this many billions of dollars in value added to GDP. These 10 airlines are in trouble. We need help. That's pretty easy to understand. Now, if I call up and I say, hey, there's 5.1 million arts workers that work in 675,000 small businesses. A lot of them declare themselves to be single proprietor small businesses themselves. A lot of human beings are running around as just a single LLC entity, and we represent $877 billion and we need aid. That is a harder thing to understand, and it's a harder thing to metabolize. Okay, well, what kind of an aid package is necessary to get that money out into the creative economy to put a floor under it and stabilize it? So one of the things that we're trying to do, as Jenny said, first things first is to get dancers and box office people and merchandise sellers at rock and roll shows and actors and stagehands and wig makers and people who work in concessions and front of house and museum docents and librarians to all understand that we are part of this sector together, and that there needs to be a space to have a conversation about our value, to understand our value, to organize around our value, and demand that we be stabilized and invested in commensurate with our value.
Wow. Yeah. Yes to all of that. Jenny, if you want to jump right back in there, please.
Oh, sure. I mean, I was like, I have so much more to say, but then I'm not letting you ask questions.
Just like you're being your own advocate, sometimes I think the best interviews are really just conversations that just see where it goes. So please take it away.
Well, I was going to say, the thing that you mentioned before about the art having a story problem, right? And that, here's the puppy.
Oh, here's my co-star. But you want to say hi to everyone?
Do you want to say hello? Oh, what a good boy, good puppy. I don't know the gender of the dog, so I will not speculate.
I appreciate that. Slimbo does identify, to my best understanding, as male, but he really appreciates you asking because, just like in the arts, we all should be seen for who we are.
I'm a big fan of asking pronouns, even.
Yes. Yes. Actually, can we just go around? I'm
Yes.
Shoshana, she, her.
Yes. I'm Jenny Grace. I'm she, her as well.
Carson Elrod, he, him.
Thank you. I've meant to do that at the beginning of all of my interviews, and I sometimes do, and I sometimes forget. So please, thank you for helping me remember that.
Yeah, we just got off to the races. It's all good.
Yeah,
exactly.
We were so excited to talk.
Better late than never, too.
But
yes,
to non-dog related. Oh my goodness, I'm so distracted by that face. So yeah, we ironically have this story problem, and I think part of it is the idea that there's this old saying of this old phrase of the starving artist, right? Which is ironic because the arts have always been profitable. And so one of the ways that we have started to deconstruct some of the implicit bias when people talk about, because when you look at the facts are indisputable. You know, we contribute $877 billion to the economy. We're 4.5% of the GDP. We have 5.1 million arts workers. Those facts are indisputable, but the conflict comes with how we are perceived and the implicit bias, right? So one of the ways that we have thought about this is to make sure that we don't use the term artist necessarily, that we instead use the term arts worker, because arts work is work. And not everyone who works in the arts and culture sector is an artist. You know, there's plenty of arts administrators, of ushers, of concession workers, of janitors who, you know, like it runs the gamut, who don't consider themselves artists, and yet they make their bread and butter in our sector, and they get a paycheck just like everybody else. So it's important for them to feel included because their lives and livelihoods have been affected by this crisis just as much as the dancers or singers or actors on stage. It isn't just about the people in the limelight and the spotlight. It's about every single worker in our sector. So yeah, I think that's part of our journey as well, is recognizing how interdependent and complex our own sector is with each other, and really fully embracing a really inclusive idea of what we mean when we say arts worker, because it's very easy to dismiss the idea of being, you know, one of the common phrases is sort of like, oh, you know, you shouldn't have majored in like medieval poetry if you wanted to have a bailout, or, you know, like there's all of this assumptions about who we are and what kind of work we're doing, right? But in reality, a vast majority of us are middle class. A vast majority of us are union members, sometimes members of multiple unions. We are solidly, you know, American labor at its finest, right? So sort of dispelling some of the myths and is part of the work that we're doing. It's not just that we're advocating the Senate and those in power, legislators, for relief, investment, and representation. We're also working very hard to message appropriately to remind people that arts work is work.
So true. And as I feel like I've said this so many times on this series, but what is everyone doing right now in a pandemic? You're watching TV shows, you're reading books, you're listening to music and podcasts, you're watching these type of videos and movies and plays. There are so many things that don't happen without artists. And yet for some reason, the myth or the mystery is that people say that, you know, are arts essential? Are arts essential workers? Are they essential in this? And it's like, there's so much that is essential to the arts and about the arts workers, because I love how you're saying that you're not just advocating for yourselves, which would also be great and enough, but looking out for the ushers and the janitors, because it doesn't happen without that. Can we talk about how, I mean, right now there's so many debates going on with politics and trying to get different plans across, but I hope Slimbo is not too distracting right now with the barking.
But there's not a burglar that he's protecting you from, you know?
I will keep an eye out. He's always at the ready. He is the knight in shining armor for sure. But right now, all these workers that are just trying to get minimum wage or just trying to get unemployment or just trying to get X, Y, and Z are the same ones who are keeping us alive, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, you know, the people who are just flipping burgers. Well, we need those burgers, whether they're veggie burgers, whether they're, you know, like there's nothing just about it, because everyone is essential both to humanity and our economy. And you do really get to understand when you're having these conversations, we need to have humanity first.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talking about larger issues, transcending, arts advocacy or arts relief, you're talking about just basic human dignity, us as a country waking up and understanding that every single person in this country deserves to have healthcare. Every single person in this country deserves to make a living wage, to have a job they can work 40 hours a week that will pay their bills and keep a roof over their heads and food in their mouths. That those things should be human rights. FDR, released his, second Bill of Rights that he never got to enact, but it said, everybody deserves a job that can pay the bills. Everybody deserves free healthcare. Everybody deserves, and it's like on a macro level, yes to all of that. And I think that the arts have a special place to humanize people, break through stereotypes, and show us that, this person, that person, every single person is a person, and their personhood is valid, their life is valid, and they deserve to have the basics to live. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that sort of what's the word I want to use? A lot of the disdain for workers that some folks consider less than, it comes from a scarcity mindset. It comes from the idea that there isn't enough to go around, so you don't deserve it, right? And that is again a story problem, because that's not true. There is plenty to go around, and then some. So part of what is important, especially in this moment, and we're launching tomorrow our 100-day campaign. It's 100 days of art and activism, right? And it's mirroring the first 100 days of the Biden-Harris administration. And I think now more than ever, maybe the closest we've come since FDR would be Obama inheriting so much debt and this the middle of the recession and economic crisis. But Biden Harris are inheriting just an unprecedented amount of issues that have to be handled quickly, efficiently, and with great thought and planning. And I think that FDR is the last president to really have to inherit those kinds of problems and start his first 100 days of a presidency combating, the worst economic crisis the country had faced, a great sort of distrust of the U.S. government, a great social justice upheaval. Jim Crow was very much alive at that time, and these are some of the problems that faced him in his first 100 days. And likewise, we see this new president as someone who has a great deal of problems to combat and to overcome. And I think that one of the ways that we're thinking about it is, what better time than to reapproach a new deal, a new deal, an era of grand sweeping public policy that helps Americans as a whole, that helps everyone. It's time for bold initiatives, and it's time to ask for what you want and what you need instead of for what you think you can get. The time for half measures is over. We can't afford to go at a glacial pace. We absolutely have to enact change in order to not just save our country and our democracy, but climate change is very much real, and it's going to take direct, immediate action to combat it. So, part of what we are talking about when we talk about an arts new deal or dramatic investment and relief in the arts and culture sector, what we're asking for is what we're really advocating for is a new vision for the future, one that where we no longer have to wait our turn or wait for the scraps. The time is now because we've proven our worth and our value. If anything, 2020 has proven our worth and our value. No one would have survived this year without arts and culture. There's no way that you can quarantine for this long without access to music and dance and TV, Hulu and Netflix, and or just watching a play, reading books. I mean, there's just, art touches everything, and it improves everything. Yeah, I'm going to stop because I will just go on about that forever.
Yeah, well, honestly, it's so true. And when I think, if anything else, when they showed, when Hamilton came out on Disney Plus, and you just saw the hunger for that, or you can see Newsies on Disney Plus, like you can see actionable things that people are actively watching right now and talking about and are getting excited about. And it shouldn't be like, well, we have to have this, and so then you'll finally understand. But it just goes to show that there are these universal things about the arts that people love and will either, get to when they're here, or hopefully very soon back in person. And I'm even thinking about how, like, I've traveled throughout the country just to see different shows that were playing in different areas. So that's once again talking about the economy. It's supporting actors, the ushers, the hotels, the food industry, the drink industry, the merchandise industry, that there's so many things. And it's also not just Broadway or off Broadway or off Broadway, that it's regional, that it's everything in between and beyond. And so I realized, what was really the thing? What was the conversation that y'all were having with the other organizers to create Be an Arts Hero? What was kind of that discussion between
It was super organic. And I was part of another organization called Fair Wage on Stage, and one of the people within Fair Wage on Stage had a conversation with a senator, and the senator, they were talking about dedicated relief for the arts and culture sector. And that senator said, you really need to be a squeaky wheel to get the grease. And you guys have some of the most exciting, compelling, sexy, squeakers, but and so we kind of started to have some conversations, and within Fair Wage on Stage, and it was really Brooke Ishibashi and I who really just took this and said, this is absolutely true. This is our mission. This is our cause. We want to start running with this. And so it really quickly, within a few days, just was something that Brooke and I were doing. And so for the first week of it, Brooke and I were doing all this research, and we were making calls to everybody that we knew. And we thought, in the early days, we thought we were just going to get some famous people to kind of step forward and just, wave their magic famous fingers. And, it's like, if Nathan Lane and Lin-Manuel Miranda, they'd march into Congress and they would say, the arts need help. And everybody would be like, Nathan Lane and Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course. What do you want? Here's a check. So we kind of entered into it with this idea. Yeah, exactly. So we came into it thinking it was going to be this really easy thing. We just needed to get a couple fancy people. And then we realized, oh no, there's no organization or collective identity within the arts and culture sector. People think of themselves as a stagehand or an actor or a dancer or an usher, or that, people are completely stratified. And writ large as an industry, I think everybody was so depressed and despondent that, we really were the first industry that was laid out. Just you had work, and especially people who were working, doing theater and performances that day, that Thursday, literally on the subway to work, and you just learn, no, there is no more work. And from what we understand from people that we know that are in shows that have been inside Broadway theaters, inside Broadway theaters right now, the costumes are still hanging. There's some on the floor of dressing rooms. Nobody's gone in. Nobody's packaged it up in plastic. Nobody's put it away. It's as if there was a fire drill, and it's just sitting there dormant. And I think that everybody was so shocked. Everybody was just in shock. And so I think everybody was just kind of, put your head between your legs and assume the crash position. And so Brooke and I kind of were in this like, no, let's get everybody together. And we realized, okay, we formed some social media handles. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to need some content to organize people around. So I went to Jenny because she's brilliant. She is one of the most talented graphic designers in New York City. She just is. Even though she doesn't do that professionally, she should and she could. And anybody who looks at our Instagram can see that Jenny Grace Makholm is one of New York's finest graphic designers. And I went to Jenny and I said, hey, would you mind creating a few things for this Be an Arts Hero campaign I'm starting? Fast forward to Jenny, like literally working around the clock for like 4 days in a row, building out graphics for all 50 states, building out our website, building out content, taking all of the data that Brooke and I were doing, and then translating it into these sexy, amazing, wonderful graphics that people were screenshotting and sharing. And it was just going, and all of a sudden our Instagram was just getting followers and followers and followers, because Jenny was giving our community content that uplifted them, that educated them, that organized them, that mobilized them. And as Jenny put in that level of commitment and work, obviously as she was creating those graphics, she was ingesting and metabolizing the content. And so then it really became the three of us. And so the three of us were just working and working and cold calling and working and working. And then sometime in July, Brooke's friend, Matthew Lee Earlbach, we wanted somebody to write like an open letter, in the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post, and Matthew Lee Earlbach had written about the economic power of the sector in the Huffington Post. And we all loved the article that he had written. So we asked him if he would like write an open letter that we could get arts organizations to sign. So he did. It got published in American Theater. There's over 17,000 people that have signed that now. And it is unbelievable, the diversity of people who have signed that. People from the Dance Theater of Harlem to the Billings Symphony to the High Plains Museum in New Mexico, all over the world. And so then it became the four of us. And so the four of us kind of started working together intimately all day, every day in July. And now we have like 50 volunteers working with us, but it's still the four of us who are kind of like the ones who like really have our noses to the grindstone, 12 hours a day, continuing to build out the coalitions, organize, bring people together, contemplate legislation, talk to lawmakers, et cetera. So that's my 5-minute monologue of kind of how it all got started.
Yeah, I mean, he tells it so well. I think that the only thing to add is, it is just the four of us, but there are a few core members of our team that I would be remiss if we didn't at least say, we have two chiefs of staff, Aaron Cutler and Jenna Rich, who I don't know. I would have been just collapsed, a shell of a human being on the floor, sobbing my eyes out at a certain point without them. Ava Koploff, who's been with our social media manager pretty much from go up until I think she joined us maybe a month in, and my God, she is the wind beneath my wings. Like
we're really lucky to say that we have some of the most talented people, and they're all over the country. We have people who are volunteering with us from Philadelphia, from Los Angeles, from the Midwest, from Kansas City, from New York. So we have a really incredibly talented, skilled, diverse set of people volunteering for us, and that's what allows us to do the size and scope of the work that we're doing.
Wow. Yeah. I'm muting myself whenever Slimbo's barking or coming in, so there might just be a little delay here or there. But having this small group that has grown and grown, but stuck to that core messaging of helping everyone who identifies as an arts worker. And what would you say is like the dream goal? Like if you could talk to, I saw that there's the like, dear Madame Vice President, or can you talk about that? Like, what would you like to say to Biden Harris campaign if you had like a one-on-one or two-on-one conversation?
Well, we wrote our own letter, and I encourage everyone to go to beanartshero.com to read just the hundreds and hundreds of letters from the greatest living American playwrights. They have written some of the most profound, most beautiful. I know it's been a very hard year. Well, 2020 was a hard year. 2021 is, look, it started off pretty rough. It has a lot to make up for. I know I needed to read them. I know I needed to hear those words. And if you are like me, I would strongly encourage you to go and read them. What it is a vision for the future. And just the idea of having, as Obama said, the audacity of hope, is something that I needed. I needed to believe that there was hope. I needed to believe that there was a future worth fighting for. And I needed to hear the visions for the future by visionaries, and who are the better visionaries than our artists, our writers.
I just want to say I love your question, because I think that revolutions start when you ask people what their ideal future would be, because you can only start to put in process the steps that will make that ideal future happen when you first envision it. And so I just want to thank you for the question, and I want to give you a very direct answer, which is, if I had the ear of our incredible new Vice President Kamala Harris and the President Joseph Biden, what I'd say is this: hey, team, I can tell you how to build back better, and it's with arts and culture. And let me tell you how. First, you need to relieve and stabilize the sector. It's $877 billion in value added to the economy. It's 5.1 million American jobs. It's 4.5% of GDP. It's in every state in the union. Every state in the union has tens of thousands of arts workers and generate billions of dollars in added value to that state's economy. So it's imperative, for the sake of the economy, that we get dedicated relief to arts workers and arts organizations. So that's the first step. So let's put a floor under the arts and culture sector. They are too big to fail. Step one. Step number two, let's build back better with arts and culture. And this is how we do it. What we do is we put creative workers to work. We find ways. First, let's have a Secretary of Arts and Culture. We bring $265 billion more to value added to the economy than transportation. There's a Secretary of Transportation. There needs to be a Secretary of Arts and Culture. There needs to be somebody on the Domestic Policy Council sitting with the President of the United States who can help guide the creative economy, talk about the creative economy, and offer how the creative economy can offer creative solutions to problems faced in agriculture, in education, in transportation. There's not one other sector in the United States that adding a creative component doesn't make better. So then, after we get the Secretary of Arts and Culture, what we need is an arts new deal. We need billions and billions and billions of dollars dedicated to a new federal one, to a new federal theater project, to a new WPA. We want to get arts and culture startups going in every state in the union. Arts and culture has a 4.16% growth rate, which is nearly double that of the rest of the economy. And in some states, it's crazy. Like in Georgia, the arts and culture growth rate is like 7.2%. That's like 400 times more powerful than the average median growth rate of other industries in the United States. And because, as Jenny said, They inspire tourism. They anchor communities. If you plant an arts and culture seed in a depressed area, like coffee shops, restaurants, parking garages, everything's going to pop up around it. So let's have an infrastructure plan that contemplates turning every abandoned building in America, every dead factory, into an arts museum, into a mixed art space, into a rock and roll club, into a community arts therapy for vets center. Let's build back better with the arts. Let's defibrillate the United States economy, give it a huge jolt. And finally, and maybe most importantly, in a time when we have got to dismantle the patriarchal white supremacy in this country and to heal the divisions that have been sown by the perpetuation of this violence, this division, this mendacity, these lies, this dehumanization of other people. The arts have a unique opportunity. They have been scientifically demonstrated to increase empathy, to bring more compassion, affection, respect into the world, to help us tell our story together better, to forge a common American identity based around humanity with the idea that all people are created equal with the rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, where there really is liberty and justice for all. This is a story that we can all get behind, and the arts can tell that story. So we can help revive the American economy, and we can help heal the American soul. There is literally no one better positioned for this moment, Madam Vice President and Mr. President, than us to heal the nation. Socially, economically, let's do it. Let's build back better with arts and culture.
Woo! I feel fired up and ready to go.
And I was going to say that, but he said it first. So, but that was
Cosine.
Yeah. So like, that's me too. Yeah, I did that. I said, yeah. I agree.
Brilliant. I heard it in both of your voices. Oh, yeah. Kind of like a nice duet.
I've never seen a soapbox I didn't want to get on.
No, what are you talking about? That was beautiful. I think it should be enshrined forever, honestly. I love that. It was perfect. I might actually ask for a clip of this so we can on our website and on our socials.
Got it.
About content.
Content.
No, one of the things we thought of with these amazing letters from these fantastic playwrights is the more playwrights write, the more content we create. This is all advocacy content, and it's brilliant advocacy content coming from the imagination of some of America's most talented arts workers. We're humbled and honored by each and every one of these art workers that have donated their time and their talent to participate. But we are thrilled that at this point, we've got about 260 letters. So that's like 500 pages of gorgeous content for us. We're going to be quoting these people for the next 10 years.
I mean, could you have ever imagined in early March, we'll say, or January, February, to go from being an arts worker? I mean, I know my purpose and we need to get the word out.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me on some level because I think we all, each one of us, Carson, me, Brooke, and Matthew, all said this at one point where we're like, my life makes sense now. I've found this is a calling. This feels like my life has built up to this moment, and so many events prior to this now make sense. Like these were lessons I needed to learn in order to do this work. So a lot, I think I still struggle with what it means to meet this moment. I didn't anticipate this being what my life is, like I have always been an artist. I have always been, a visual artist, a singer, an actor, a producer, a director, a producer. I have always immersed myself completely in arts. It's my entire identity is of an artist, not an arts advocate, which is a different thing. And to my mind, for me, you know, when I told that story of that origin story, right, of like little hippies dangling crystals over my mom's belly, right, and the idea that I grew up having a love of the arts fostered in me from basically from birth. And there is nothing purer in the world to me than the arts. And there's no cause I can think of that for me, it feels like I'm uniquely positioned to fight with every fiber of my being for. So I'm blessed in that way. I know blessed, but you know, I feel it is a tremendous amount of work, and it has fundamentally changed my life in a way that, I mean, I don't recognize my life. I don't recognize my life, and oftentimes I don't recognize myself. I am a different person, and my life is a different life than it was a year ago.
Yeah, I would say the short answer to your question is no. I never would have expected that in March, when I lost 3 jobs at the same time, I would not contemplate that less than a year later, I would spend my days getting up and getting on Zooms and literally talking to senators' offices and House of Representatives' offices and talking to some of the most inspiring and incredible arts advocates in the country, talking to lobbyists, talking to partners. Like we have a partnership with a brewery that we're going to launch next week, and just like the idea that is happening. Or, you know, last week there was a Washington Post article that was written about Be an Arts Hero and our objectives and what we're trying to do. And the idea last March that we would be in the Washington Post fighting or laboring on behalf of the 2.7 million arts workers that are completely and totally unemployed. I never would have seen this coming. And, you know, as I reflect on it now, I understand that it's advocacy and that it's working. But it also is absolutely a psychological coping mechanism to the fact that our industry is being gutted, devastated, and destroyed, and that my personal life has been gutted and devastated and destroyed. And so the idea of me getting up and not having this animate my days, I think it was Thanksgiving where we kind of took our first break. And for the first 3 days that we took a break, I fell into a horrible depression. And I was not fun to be around, and I was just upset. I was tired, and I just like, I didn't like cooking, and I didn't like looking out the window, and I just had like a pit in my stomach, and I was just a grumpy man. And I was like, oh, part of what's going on is this labor is on behalf of all of us that are feeling this tremendous pain and horror and anguish. And there's so much being lost right now. You know, my Facebook is a parade of people moving away from the city, right? You know, I don't know how many people I've seen be like, I went as far as I could go. The money's gone. I'm moving back in with my parents. Or I'm thinking of one of my friends who inherited her mother's house in Maryland and is like, I'm going to move in to that house in Maryland. I don't know when and if I'll ever be able to afford to move back to New York City to do this with my life. Like Michael Seaman, who was one of the co-authors of Lost Art, COVID-19's devastating impact on the creative economy, talks about the creative economy has human infrastructure and physical infrastructure, and we're losing both of them right now. And so it makes sense. Like as Jenny said, this makes sense to be what I am doing with my life right now. I want to be doing this work. It makes me feel that I have a calling again, that I have a purpose again, and I have always really enjoyed trying to fight a fight on behalf of other people and on behalf of people who deserve better. And we want to change the conversation in this country about the creative economy and the arts and culture sector and the people that work in it, because we deserve relief. We've earned relief. And as I said before, we can be such a huge help in building back our economy and the heart of our country.
The good fight, if you will.
Yeah, you did it. Yeah, I was on the good fight. And here's the thing, I hope that they pick me back up, because my character was developing, but I really think that my character probably worked for the administration that's leaving tomorrow. So when that show comes back, I'm really hopeful that they can find a way to write my mysterious character back in, that he was really a spy for the Democrats all along. Who knows?
A spy on the inside.
That's right.
Well, it's an unresolved storyline. They have to bring you back just to explain what like they can't leave us hanging.
Good fight. Please, they have to. Please, the good fight. Don't you have to? Bring me back. Bring me back.
Yeah, it's all jokes aside, there are so many storylines that you're like, we could rework this. I don't think anyone will care. And especially like you're seeing films and TV shows with stories that were half filmed pre-pandemic, and now some of them are starting to be filmed again in the pods, or they will be filmed later on. And personally speaking, I don't care if it looks a little different, or your hair has changed, or things that have changed because you're a human living through a pandemic. And yeah. I'd say most people are fairly understanding about all of that. And we just need to be there. There are a lot of things that need to change, but being kind to one another, I think, is very top.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
Yes. So I have a few. I'm going to just do a quick little mute. I've been trying to mute on and off so that it doesn't, the audio doesn't go off at one another. I have a few notes here that I just want to do, and I see that we're practically at the 1 hour. So I'm just going to wrap it up. We always talk about a nonprofit or charity at the end of these interviews, but we've been talking all about Be an Arts Hero the whole time. And I just want to ask, where can people send money or get involved if they want to? And Jenny, I'll start with you, and then Carson, I'll have you wrap up that portion.
Well, in terms of donating to our organization, if you go to our website, there's a donate button, and we would love for your donations, and we also we're 100% volunteer run and operated. We're still trying to figure out how to build out our organization so that we become fully staffed, a fully run organization where we pay people what they deserve to be paid for the work they're doing. But beyond that, there's a lot of organizations that are doing tremendous work. If you are interested in helping arts workers in crisis, the go-to is for us is the Actors Fund, but there's also the Sims Foundation, there's Broadway Cares, there's a tremendous amount of them. And if you go on our website, you'll see that there's a resources tab that has a list of organizations that are there to help arts workers. So if you are an arts worker in crisis, check out that list. And check out those resources. And if you're someone who has money to burn, check out those resources and donate to those causes. Carson?
Yeah, I would. The one that I would add is Broadway Cares. Equity Fights AIDS is one of the premier relief organizations in the country. They're doing such important work right now. Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, the Actors Fund, the Sims Foundation, Artist Relief Tree. So as Jenny said, check it out. We try to give a resource page. And for people who are interested in donating to Be an Arts Hero, we are becoming a 501c4. A donation to us is not tax deductible. And our primary objectives are activism, organizing, and lobbying. We are not a relief organization. We are lobbying for relief. So I just want to make that distinction. And there are so many relief organizations that need help right now. And if you can donate there, bring relief there. And if you have a couple bucks left to spare to help us start our company, you can come back to beanartshero.com and you can donate there.
Fabulous, fabulous. Our Slim is just very much, he's like, burglars beware, stay away. So he's just very barking a lot right now. I wore this shirt on purpose, or the sweatshirt, because T Rico, it's Lin-Manuel's T Rico. This whole line completely goes to Broadway Cares, Equity, Fights, AIDS. It's amazing. And it's very comfortable. I must say, it's just like a warm, cozy sweatshirt, and they have shirts and they have a whole line of things that if you're like, I want to donate and also rock some cool swag.
Yes.
That's the place to go.
Oh, it looks great. That's a great sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm into comfort. I'm wearing pajama pants, you know, like all the time. Yeah.
I'm not wearing any pants at all.
Oh, look at that. The one good thing of being able to do this from our living rooms is that you can just wear pajama pants and nobody knows.
Nope.
Nobody needs to know.
Business from the shoulders up, right? Is my entire professional. That's my look. It's this.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great look. It's a great look. So I want to just make sure everyone can find your personal social media handles and Be an Arts Hero. Carson, let's start with you, and then Jenny will wrap it up.
Yeah, I think on Instagram I'm at NYCDE. I think on Twitter I'm at WanderingCDE. But definitely look for Be an Arts Hero. Don't look for me. I'm kind of boring on social media. So definitely go at Be an Arts Hero for Instagram, at Be an Arts Hero for Twitter. We have a Facebook page as well. So definitely please do follow us on those handles. And we're going to be doing nonstop advocacy on all of them.
I second Carson's saying, please. You can follow me if you so desire, but my Instagram is at Jenny Grace M. For someone who is always on social media because of the work I'm doing, my own account, I'm not on it. I'm more on Twitter than anything else, and that my Twitter handle is at Jenny Grace, TheJennyGrace. But again, this work is so immersive that I don't think I even posted when we were on the cover of the Washington Post art section. I don't think I even posted about it. I posted about it from our organization's page, but from my own, it's just, my own pages have gotten sorely neglected. This is what the work is. But if all of our social media handles are at Be an Arts Hero. So, if you just search for that, Be an Arts Hero, you'll find us right away.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. And if y'all want to see any more from this conversation, you can go to at bwaySHO. That's BWAYSHO. And I will definitely send y'all a raw video clip from this interview so you can share it away as much as you'd like.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Was there anything else? I like to just finally wrap it up with, is there anything you came into today wanting to make sure everyone got to hear from you?
The only thing that I would say is that if you're watching this, if you're an arts worker, and even if you're not an arts worker, your voice matters. It counts. If you look at the National Independent Venue Association, that's a group of people that didn't exist as an organization a year ago. And they were able to craft a piece of legislation called Save Our Stages that contemplated $15 billion for the creative economy and get it into this latest compromise bill. And the fact that they did that within 9 months shows you, it should show you at home that your voice matters. You can organize, as Jenny was saying earlier, the more the merrier. You know, start your own advocacy group, join our advocacy group, just invest in the advocacy groups that are already out there. But every time you pick up the phone and you call your senators and your representatives or the White House, every time that you write a letter, it is logged. Somebody reads it. They don't just go into space. They are logged. It turns into data. You know, if all of a sudden Jerry Moran in Kansas, a senator, if all of a sudden the tens of thousands of Kansas arts workers started to call his office and say, we need relief, we deserve relief, what are you doing for Kansas arts workers? It would make a big difference. So if you're watching this, if you're an arts worker, if you love the arts, if you consume the arts, if you want the arts to survive and thrive, please get involved. Go to beanartshero.com. We've got a million toolkits for you. We've got a graphics yard full of graphics that you can download for every single platform. You can share them. Be sure to tag the government, tag the president and vice president, tag your senators, tag your reps, because there are people that work in their offices and they tabulate. You know, Jerry Moran's social media manager is like, everybody's tweeting about arts, Senator. So, you know, be part of the solution by jumping in and, you know, build advocacy into your day, build advocacy into your life, put it in your calendar, go to ResistBot, send a letter, just do it at least once a week. I know it feels like, you know, everything is so annoying right now and we're all depressed. We're all despondent. We're all struggling with hopelessness and whether or not our individual voice matters, but it does. It absolutely does. Every vote counts and every call counts. So please join us, be an arts hero, and advocate on behalf of yourself and on behalf of the 5.1 million arts workers in the United States.
Democracy is a verb. That's the only thing I have to add. It's just in summation, democracy is a verb. If you practice it, you are participating in it. So yeah, call, write, tweet, do what you can do to you know, advocate for the future that you want. Democracy is a verb.
Yeah. He gets it. Slimbo gets it.
Slimbo is all about that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you both so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned so much, and everyone watching at home, I hope you've enjoyed this as well. Please go check them out. Have a great day. Wear a mask, be safe, and we'll see you at the show.
Thank you for having us.